You already know you are capable of more than this. You feel it in the quiet moments when the day ends and you look back at what you actually did versus what you intended to do, and the gap between those two things sits in your chest like a weight you cannot put down. The restlessness is not weakness. It is evidence of something. You have been going through the motions of a life without ever picking up the code that holds it together. And deep down, some part of you has always known it. The problem is not your circumstances. It is not your past. The problem is that nobody ever handed you a standard, a clear, uncompromising framework for what a man is actually supposed to become. And in the absence of that standard, you built habits that slowly, quietly made you smaller. But here is what I need you to understand before this video is over. There is a code that the most powerful men in recorded history lived by. A code that turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. And what separates the men who find it from the men who die, never knowing it, is simpler than you think. The ancient Stoics had a vision of the fully realized man. Not a man without flaws, but a man in relentless pursuit of mastery across 3 domains simultaneously: the mind, the body, and the character. Study like a monk. Train like a warrior. Live like a king. Most men in the modern world attack these 3 things separately, which is exactly why they fail at all 3. They try to build discipline in one area while abandoning the others, and then wonder why their progress keeps collapsing. The Stoics understood something essential. These 3 pillars are not independent practices. They are a single architecture, and you cannot remove one without the entire structure falling on you. The men who figured this out, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, did not just read philosophy. They lived it as a daily operating system, a code that governed every hour. The ones who missed it remained slaves to comfort, to opinion, to impulse. And the gap between those 2 outcomes is just as wide today as it has ever been. Lesson 1. Study like a monk. The first pillar is the mind. And before you tell yourself you are not a reader or that you do not have enough time, understand what studying like a monk actually means, because it has nothing to do with how many books you finish. Marcus Aurelius was governing the largest empire in the world when he sat alone each morning and wrote in his private journal, not for an audience, not for posterity, but to understand himself with complete precision. That is the first thing most men get wrong about intellectual discipline. They think it is about accumulating information. It is not. It is about building clarity in a world that is specifically designed to keep you permanently confused. The modern world is the most sophisticated distraction machine ever created. Every notification, every piece of algorithmically engineered content, every 30-second video is quietly training your brain to become incapable of deep thought. And here's the terrifying part that most people never sit with long enough to feel the weight of. The less deeply you think, the less you realize you are no longer thinking at all. The erosion is invisible. The cost is everything you were supposed to become. So here is the question that should genuinely unsettle you right now. When was the last time you sat alone with a difficult idea and refused to let it go until you completely understood it? Epictetus, born a slave who became one of the most important philosophers in human history, said that you should seek not the good in external things, but within yourself. He was describing a daily practice of internal examination that most men today have quietly traded for the comfort of constant stimulation. And the tragedy is that they do not even feel the loss because they are always busy. But busy and productive are not the same thing. Busyness is noise. Discipline is architecture. The monk does not study to impress anyone. He studies to become someone capable of clarity when everyone around him is reacting from confusion. The application is not complicated, but it requires something the modern world actively discourages: patience. 30 minutes every morning. Before the phone, before the obligations, before the noise begins, you sit with something that challenges you. You hold it. You return to it the next morning and the morning after, until your mind begins to reshape itself around depth rather than speed. This is what separates the men who keep growing from the men who stay trapped in the same patterns for decades, circling the same unfulfilled potential until time runs out. Comment the word monk below if this is the practice you are committing to starting today. And if this kind of thinking is what you have been looking for, subscribe now. Because the second pillar is where most men fall completely apart. You now understand what it means to build the mind with the patience of a philosopher. But a sharp mind inside a neglected body is an incomplete foundation. The second pillar is where the real test of who you are begins. Lesson 2. Train like a warrior. The Stoics believed the body and the mind were in permanent conversation with each other, and what you do to one, you do to the other. Marcus Aurelius wrote about choosing the cold morning over the warmth of his bed, not because cold mornings were pleasant, but because that daily choice was a rehearsal for every other choice the day would demand from him. Training is not about physical results. It is about building a relationship with difficulty, and that relationship determines the absolute ceiling of your entire life. Think about the last time you faced something genuinely uncomfortable, not inconvenient, not mildly annoying, but uncomfortable enough that the voice inside you said quit. Every man has that voice. The undisciplined man obeys it without question. The warrior watches it, names it for what it is, and walks through it anyway. And here is what nobody who avoids this lesson ever discovers. On the other side of consistent discomfort is a version of yourself that trusts himself completely. A man who does not flinch when things get hard because he has rehearsed that steadiness thousands of times before. Most men never reach him. They stay comfortable, stay safe, keep the voice in charge, and then wonder why nothing in their life ever fully arrives the way they imagined it would. Ask yourself honestly, and do not let yourself slide past this question without answering it. Does your current physical practice regularly include things harder than what you feel like doing? Because if your training only happens when motivation shows up, it is not a discipline. It is entertainment. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. The anticipation of difficulty is almost always worse than the difficulty itself. Every morning you delay, you are proving him right in the worst possible way. The warrior does not wait for the right mood. He builds a system and then shows up to it feeling or not, tired or not, ready or not. The transformation that comes from this discipline is not just physical. When you train consistently through resistance and fatigue and the inner voice that tells you to stop, your brain begins to believe at a level deeper than conscious thought that you are someone who does not quit, and that belief floods into everything else. Your work, your decisions, your ability to endure whatever life places in front of you without collapsing. Comment the word warrior below if you are done negotiating with the voice that wants to keep you small. Subscribe if you want to keep building this, because the third pillar is the one that transforms discipline into a legacy that outlasts you. The mind is sharp. The body is forged under pressure. But a man who thinks clearly and trains hard is still unfinished if he has not learned to carry himself with the sovereignty that defines a king. This final pillar changes everything. Lesson 3. Live like a king. Living like a king has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with recognition, status, or the approval of people who will not remember your name in 50 years. The Stoics understood something that the modern world has completely reversed. A king is not someone who has conquered the world. A king is someone who has conquered himself. And that conquest is never final. It is renewed every single morning in every single choice. The way you start your day, the way you respond when things go wrong, the way you carry yourself through difficulty, the way you behave when no one is watching and there is no one to perform for. Marcus Aurelius governed a crumbling empire while losing children, managing betrayal and enduring one of the worst plagues in Roman history. The Meditations, his private journal never intended for anyone else to read, is not a record of complaint. It is a document of relentless recommitment to virtue under impossible conditions. He was not performing strength for an audience. He was practicing it in private every single day, because he understood that private virtue is the only kind that is real. So here's the question that should stay with you long after this video ends. Who are you when no one is watching? Because the gap between that man and the man you present to the world is the exact measurement of how far you still have to go. Most men live reactively. Something happens and they respond from impulse. Someone disrespects them and they explode. A plan falls apart and they abandon everything they were building. This is not living. This is being lived. A king in the Stoic sense is a man who has built such a strong inner structure that the outer world loses most of its power to move him from his values. He is not cold. He is not distant. He feels everything, but he processes it through principle rather than impulse, through commitment rather than reaction. And the way you build that inner structure is through the first two pillars working together. The mind that thinks without confusion, and the body that has learned to endure without surrendering. Every time you choose the harder option when the easier one was right there waiting for you, you write one sentence in the story of who you are. Enough of those sentences become a character. That character becomes your identity, and your identity eventually becomes your legacy. Comment the word king below if you understand this. not just intellectually but in your bones, because the men who find this code and refuse to let it go do not just become more successful, they become someone worth becoming. And that transformation, once it truly begins, does not stop. These three pillars, the monk, the warrior, the king, are not separate achievements you collect one at a time. They are a single identity expressed through three disciplines practiced simultaneously. The monk gives you the clarity to see your life without illusion. The warrior gives you the strength to build it without excuses. The king gives you the sovereignty to live it without apology. When these three align inside a single man, something shifts that cannot be undone. He stops waiting for permission. He stops negotiating with the version of himself that wants less. He simply becomes. That is the code of the disciplined man. Not a program you follow until you feel like stopping, but a standard you hold because you have decided, clearly and permanently, that the version of yourself who lived without it is not someone you are willing to be anymore. A year from now, two versions of you are possible. The first looks exactly like the one sitting here right now. Same pattern, same quiet frustration, same distance between what you imagine and what you actually build. The second is someone you can barely picture yet. He wakes before the world makes its demands. He trains when he does not feel like it. He sits with hard ideas until they become clarity. He carries himself through difficulty the way a man who has done the deep inner work carries himself. Not loudly, not for approval, but with a steadiness that cannot be faked and cannot be taken from him. That version of you is not a fantasy. He is the product of a decision made today and repeated every single morning, until it stops being a choice and starts being who you are. This is the code. You have heard it now. The only question remaining is whether you choose it. Drop a comment below, monk, warrior, or king, and tell me which pillar you are starting with today. If this video moved something real in you, like it so other men can find it too,